Okay, what we're going to do today is a quick treatment of Jean-Paul Sartre's Existentialism in Human Emotions. Now, this is a very good first introductory look at existentialism. And I'm going to treat existentialism sort of quickly here because, to an extent, we've already seen it with Nietzsche. Nietzsche, in his morality, develops a kind of picture of the human subjectivity in which we are nothing but what we make ourselves. Right? Now, we saw in Beyond Good and Evil how Nietzsche becomes critical of this conception of the free will, right? In which it doesn't make any more sense to talk about us having a free will than it does to talk about us having an unfree will. Ultimately, for Nietzsche, it was a question of strong or weak wills, right? Now, Nietzsche was, in a sense, objecting to the use of the term freedom applied to the will, right? Whereas Sartre sees no problem with the term freedom, and in fact, he does not apply it to a free will, some sort of faculty within us. In fact, Sartre sees our basic ontological condition, the basic situation that we find ourselves in, to be one which is essentially free. Right? There's no point in which we can really say we are unfree. Right? Now, this is distinct from saying that we have a free will. Right? Seeing as how the dogmatic sort of baggage of the term free will relates to the kind of subjectivity that Nietzsche and Sartre ultimately want to reject, the idea of an essence or a soul or an ego that exists in some way in some sort of transcendental realm, right? Now, the first principle of existentialism is that existence precedes essence, right? Now, we've seen several examples of how essence can precede existence, right? We've seen it in Aristotle, we've seen it in both Mill and Immanuel Kant as well, right? All of these figures try to define what mankind is even before we find ourselves in existence in a situation, right? We are these kind of creatures with a priori from before nature. So we're thrown into the world already as sort of set or determined creatures, and acting morally has to do with becoming what we are. For the existentialists, and Nietzsche's kind of a proto-existentialist, whereas Sartre is the one who coins the term and uses it, what we find is we come into the world, and only upon entering the world do we then define ourselves, right? We are nothing but what we make ourselves. We are nothing but what we choose to be. So it's our choices and our actions that define us, right? So in a sense, what we're doing is we come into the world as basically nothing, as these creatures that have to be thrown into a world and have to make choices there. That's the one thing we cannot do, is fail to choose, right? We are, in Sartrean terms, doomed to choose. We're absolutely free creatures, and through our choices, only then do we become what we are, right? So Sartre's reacting to this sort of treatment of the essentialists who claim that we are already sort of shake and bake mixtures of determinate qualities, right? Or that we're already either good or basically bad even before we choose, right? So Sartre, in a sense, is reacting to this notion of original sin, right? Now, the first move of existentialism is to show that with this absolute freedom that's filled up through our choices comes absolute responsibility, right? If we had a nature, which Sartre and Nietzsche deny, right, then in a sense what we can use that nature for is an excuse. Whenever we see human beings acting badly, whenever we see ourselves acting badly, we just say, well, that's just human nature playing itself out, right? But if Sartre's really right and existence precedes essence, then who do we blame if we act badly? Who do we blame if we see other people acting badly? Right? The blame, the responsibility for all of our choices and all of our actions rests upon us. And this responsibility is absolute. Right? Now, Sartre on your page 15 towards the bottom claims quite clearly to drive this point home. Right? Man is nothing but what he makes of himself. Such is the first principle of existentialism. It's also what is called subjectivity, the name we are labeled with when charges are brought against us. But what do we mean by this, if not that man has greater dignity than a stone or a table? A stone or a table or a book or a computer. Its being is not an issue for it. It does not define itself through its choices. A chair, a table, a computer, a book. These things are already what they are going to become. Right? So Sartre goes on. For we mean that man first exists, that is, man first of all is the being who hurls himself towards a future and who is conscious of imagining himself in that future. Man at the start is a plan which is aware of itself rather than a patch of moss or a piece of garbage or a cauliflower. Nothing exists prior to this plan. Nothing in heaven. Man will be what he will be what he will have planned to be, not what he will want to be, because by the word will we generally mean a conscious decision, which is subsequent to what we've already made of ourselves. I may want to belong to a political party, write a book, get married, but all that is only a manifestation of an earlier, more spontaneous choice that is called will. But if existence really does precede essence, man is responsible for what he is. Thus, existentialism's first move is to make every man aware of what he is and to make the full responsibility of his existence rest on him. And when I say that man is responsible for himself, we do not mean that he is responsible only for his individuality, but he is responsible for all men. So, what Sartre is trying to illustrate to us here is that if existence really precedes essence, or we define ourselves through our choices, through our actions, and these choices and actions, the full weight of the responsibility falls upon us. When we make a choice, really what we are doing is defining all of humanity through our choices and our actions. Right? Really, this is what we are doing. We are, in a sense, all authors of the essence of human. So what Sartre then turns to, from page 18 through to, where is it here? Despair. It's through to probably 32 or something like that. Yep, 32. Is he lays out three proper emotional dispositions, right? That are, if we really take the consequences of these realizations that existence precedes essence, and that in choosing ourselves, we not only define ourselves, but we choose all of mankind as well. But if we really take these insights seriously, right, our absolute freedom and our absolute responsibility, then we should feel anxious. Anxiety is something we should feel. We should feel forlorn, because we are. And we should feel despair, right? So really, the puppy dogs and ice cream portion of this class is over. These are proper emotional, we should feel these. These aren't things that a psychologist can help us with. It's not something we can work through and overcome. This is basic to our situation as humans. The only thing that we might be able to do, and Sartre addresses this, is evasively turn away from our anxiety, our forlornness, and despair, right? Either through what he calls bad faith, or through a chemical version of bad faith that might be some sort of mood-suppressing, numbing drugs, right? And these are not options in the Sartrean analysis ethically.